Hollywood has seen its share of tough guys, but some actors were more than just characters on screen. They were genuinely tough in real life. These were men who could knock someone out with a single punch, and then calmly get back to shooting the next scene. The gritty heroes, fighters, and warriors we admired weren't just playing a part. Many of them lived lives filled with real danger and drama, bringing an unmatched authenticity to their roles. They weren't just acting tough, they had the scars and stories to prove it. Today we're peeling back the glamorous Hollywood curtain to uncover the raw truth about the 10 toughest actors in film history. What's especially surprising about the actor ranked fourth on our list is how studio bosses went to great lengths to hide his past, worried that audiences would find it too unbelievable. But before we get into the incredible tales of these legendary figures, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop a comment below to share your location. I make sure to read every message and really enjoy connecting with fellow classic movie fans from all over the world. Now let's kick off this trip through Hollywood's toughest with perhaps the most genuinely hardened actor the industry has ever known. A man whose real-life adventures might sound like fiction if they weren't so well recorded. When people imagine Hollywood's toughest guys, names like John Wayne or Clint Eastwood often come to mind. But the most genuinely formidable figure to ever grace the big screen was actually a small baby-faced man standing just 5'5" feet. Eddie Murphy looked so harmless that casting directors often doubted he could pull off action roles. Yet Murphy was undoubtedly the deadliest man in Hollywood's history. Before stepping into acting, he was the most highly decorated American soldier of World War II. At just 19, he single-handedly held off a whole company of German troops in France for an hour, then led a counterattack despite being wounded and out of bullets. For this heroic feat, he earned the Medal of Honor, America's top military award. But that was only one chapter in Murphy's incredible war story. Throughout his service, he collected every possible U.S. combat award for bravery, plus 5 more from France and Belgium. By the time he turned 21, he had amassed 28 medals. His battlefield feats included destroying enemy tanks, repeatedly charging machine gun nests on his own, and fighting on despite being wounded 3 separate times. Hollywood discovered Murphy after he landed on the cover of Life magazine, but studios struggled to cast him because he looked too youthful and innocent to be convincing as a tough guy. When he first showed up for a screen test, security guards didn't even believe he was the war hero they'd been told about. The truth is, despite his unassuming look, Murphy was probably more lethal than any other actor in history. Military experts estimate he personally killed between 240 and 300 enemy soldiers, more than many entire military units combined. One of the most striking parts of his career was when he played himself in the film Hell and Back, reenacting his own wartime experiences. But even then, the filmmakers had to tone down some of his true acts, because they thought audiences wouldn't believe them. Director Jesse Hibbs admitted that some of Murphy's real feats were cut out for being too unbelievable. After the war, Murphy struggled with severe PTSD, often sleeping with a loaded gun under his pillow, and waking up in cold sweats from nightmares. His second wife, Wanda Hendricks, once said looking into his eyes was like staring at someone who could kill without hesitation. It was the most frightening moment of her life. What's truly striking about Murphy is that, unlike many others on this list, he didn't want to be seen as a tough guy on screen. He preferred lighter roles, comedies and romances, so he could escape the violent memories of his past. But beneath that gentle exterior was a man who faced more real combat and personally took down more enemies than perhaps any actor in Hollywood history. Before Charles Bronson became one of the most memorable tough guys in film, his early life was filled with hardships that would have crushed most people. Born Charles Bukowski, he was raised in extreme poverty as one of 15 siblings in a coal mining family in Pennsylvania. By the age of 10, he was already working underground in the mines to help support his family, spending much of his childhood in the pitch-black tunnels far beneath the earth. Bronson rarely spoke in detail about his youth, but once said simply that he was drawn to tough roles because of his upbringing. Growing up in violent neighborhoods, he had witnessed death and hardship up close, living with constant threats of starvation and misery. What many don't realize is that Bronson's trademark look, the rough, weathered face, the intense squint, and that signature grimace, wasn't an act. Those were the marks of a man who had spent years inhaling coal dust and battling for survival in brutal environments, where weakness meant you wouldn't last long. Yet the real test of his toughness came during World War II. Serving as a B-29 aerial gunner with the Army Air Forces, Bronson flew 25 missions over Japan and earned a Purple Heart for wounds he sustained in combat. His fellow servicemen described him as unnervingly calm under fire, the kind of guy you'd want beside you when things got dangerous. After the war, Bronson's journey to fame wasn't smooth. He held over 50 different jobs, from picking onions to cooking at diners, and even boxing professionally, all while trying to break into acting with minor roles. Even once he started landing more steady parts, he was frequently typecast as criminals, thugs or Native Americans, despite his Lithuanian roots, thanks largely to his naturally intimidating presence. What set Bronson apart from other tough guy actors was that while many did their own stunts, Bronson fought on screen like a man who truly understood violence. Film historian Eddie Muller once pointed out that when Bronson throws a punch in a movie, it doesn't look staged. It looks like someone who has been in real fights and knows exactly how to inflict damage. Co-stars often remarked on his surprising strength. Though he stood just 5 feet 9 inches tall, Bronson had the solid, powerful build of a former laborer and boxer. Jan Michael Vincent, who acted alongside him in The Mechanic, remembered Bronson's physical presence vividly. Perhaps the clearest proof of Bronson's genuine toughness came when he received death threats from the Mafia after playing vigilante Paul Kersey in Death Wish. While the studio suggested he take bodyguards, Bronson refused, saying simply, "No thanks." Unlike other stars who might have welcomed protection or even publicity from such threats, Bronson's calm reaction showed the quiet confidence of a man who had faced far worse dangers. Michael Winner, who directed Bronson in several films, once said that authenticity was exactly what made Bronson so unique. Lee Marvin wasn't just good at playing tough guys, he truly was the kind of man his roles suggested. Before becoming a famous face in Hollywood, Marvin served as a Marine during World War II, taking part in some of the fiercest battles in the Pacific. As a private first class in the 4th Marine Division, he fought in the brutal Battle of Saipan in 1944, where a machine gun wound severely damaged his sciatic nerve. This injury kept him in the hospital for a full year, and left him with a permanent limp he cleverly hid throughout his acting career. Marvin earned the Purple Heart for his bravery and injuries, though he rarely opened up about the war. When he did speak about his combat experiences, he was brutally honest, dismissing any romantic idea of war by saying only a liar or a fool could enjoy combat. This raw honesty gave Marvin a unique edge in portraying violence on screen. Director John Boorman, who worked with him on Point Blank, noted that Marvin brought a rare and genuine understanding of violence to his performances, something many actors lacked. In movies like The Dirty Dozen and The Killers, his characters carried a chilling realism, because Marvin wasn't pretending to be dangerous, he was drawing from first-hand experience. Many actors found Marvin intimidating both on and off camera. James Coburn, another tough guy actor, once mentioned there was something about Marvin that was hard to define, but impossible to ignore. One of the clearest proofs of Marvin's real-life toughness was his notorious bar fight during a film shoot in Oregon. In his 40s at the time, he reportedly went up against a group of much younger lumberjacks and held his own until the police stepped in. Despite the bruises, Marvin was back on set the very next day, refusing medical treatment or any changes to his schedule. What made Marvin especially interesting was how he mixed physical toughness with a sharp intellect. Even with his reputation as a hard drinker and fighter, he was thoughtful and serious about his work. Director Samuel Fuller, who directed him in The Big Red One, described Marvin as a combat-hardened Marine who carried his real-life battles into every role. Film critic Roger Ebert summed it up perfectly, saying when Lee Marvin threatens someone on screen, you believe it, because Marvin had the power to back up that threat in real life. Steve McQueen wasn't just known as Hollywood's king of cool, he was a true daredevil, whose real-life escapades often outshone his film roles. Unlike many actors who leaned on staged publicity, McQueen insisted on doing his own stunts whenever he could, living a life packed with real danger and excitement. His toughness started young. After a troubled childhood filled with abandonment and abuse, he ran away from home at 14 and joined the Marines in 1947. His military career wasn't smooth sailing. He was demoted 7 times for insubordination, and even spent 41 days in the brig for overstaying a weekend pass by 2 weeks. Still, despite his rebellious streak, McQueen redeemed himself, and even saved 5 fellow Marines during a dangerous Arctic training exercise, when their tank broke through the ice. After leaving the service with an honorable discharge, McQueen bounced around jobs like lumberjack, oil rigger, and carnival barker before finally finding his way into acting. But unlike many stars who leave their wild past behind once they hit it big, McQueen kept pushing limits. His love for motorsports wasn't just a pastime, it was a full-on obsession that put his life and career at risk. He raced motorcycles and cars professionally, sometimes using fake names to keep studios from grounding him. On the set of The Great Escape, he did all his own motorcycle stunts, except the famous fence jump, which the studio's insurance refused to cover. Many people don't realize McQueen wasn't just pretending to be a racer. He competed against top professionals, and often finished near the front. In the 1970s, at the grueling 12 hours of Sebring endurance race, he and co-driver Peter Revson took second place overall, even though McQueen was racing with a broken foot in a cast from a recent motorcycle crash. Bud Ekins, McQueen's longtime stunt double and friend, once said Steve wasn't acting tough or pretending to be a racer. He truly was both. Ekins even knew professional racers less skilled or brave than McQueen on the track. McQueen's fearless approach also showed in his film work. During the filming of The Sand Pebbles, he insisted on doing a risky river scene himself, and nearly drowned when caught in a strong current. On The Towering Inferno, he performed stunts with real fire, dangerous even for seasoned stuntmen. Director John Sturges, who worked with him on The Great Escape and The Magnificent Seven, said nothing stopped McQueen from doing the most perilous stunts, because he had zero fear, making him both thrilling and terrifying to work with. Perhaps the clearest sign of McQueen's genuine toughness came when police warned him he was on Charles Manson's hit list, alongside other stars like Frank Sinatra. Instead of hiring a security team, McQueen took a direct approach. He started carrying a loaded Magnum pistol wherever he went, trusting his own grit over bodyguards or elaborate protection. Before becoming one of Hollywood's biggest names, Kirk Douglas, originally Isser Danielewicz, climbed out of severe poverty through sheer grit and determination. His family was so poor they sometimes went hungry, and young Kirk made his first earnings selling snacks to mill workers. This early hustle and drive fueled the tenacity that would later carry him to stardom. But Douglas wasn't just fighting poverty, he also turned his tough upbringing into success as a genuine wrestler. Before stepping into acting, he competed seriously in wrestling, earning a scholarship to St. Lawrence University, because of his strength and skill. This was real competition, not staged entertainment, demanding real toughness and athleticism. Douglas's true test came during World War II, where he served as a communications officer on a Navy submarine chaser, a role packed with danger due to constant threats and the pressure of confined spaces. Injuries he sustained in service eventually led to his medical discharge in 1944. What set Douglas apart from other tough actors was his mix of raw physical power and unstoppable determination. Stanley Kubrick, who had a famously stormy relationship with Douglas during Spartacus, admitted he hired real wrestlers for fight scenes to keep them authentic. Douglas himself insisted on performing a risky fall in one scene, ignoring warnings from the stunt coordinator. He got hurt badly, but bounced back to work after only 2 days, something most actors wouldn't manage. Co-stars often remarked on Douglas's strength and commanding presence. Burt Lancaster, a former circus acrobat himself, once said Douglas approached acting like a fight. He didn't just act out a scene, he attacked it with full force. Perhaps the clearest example of Douglas's real toughness came in 1991, when he survived a serious helicopter crash that killed 2 people and left him with a crippling back injury. In his 70s, Douglas pushed through a long, painful recovery to walk again. Later, after suffering a stroke in 1996 that affected his speech, he fought through years of therapy and even wrote a book about his journey, showcasing his relentless spirit. Director Howard Hawks, who worked with many tough guys in Hollywood, noted that Douglas rarely bragged about his toughness, but lived it every day. In his autobiography, Douglas shared an honest view of strength, born from real life, not Hollywood hype. James Cagney might have been only 5'5", but pound for pound, he was one of the toughest men ever to grace the silver screen. Long before becoming famous for playing gangsters and tough guys, Cagney built real fighting skills out of necessity growing up in Manhattan's rough Lower East Side. Boxing wasn't just a sport for him, it was how he survived. The violent streets ruled by gangs meant Cagney had to be faster and tougher than anyone else. He became an accomplished amateur boxer, developing lightning-fast hands and quick footwork that later became trademarks of his screen performances. What many viewers didn't realize watching Cagney's realistic fight scenes was that they were seeing someone who'd been in dozens of actual street fights. His style wasn't the slow choreographed brawls common in Hollywood, but quick, brutal, and to the point, just like real-life fights. Director Raoul Walsh, who worked with Cagney on films like White Heat, praised his timing and agility, which let Cagney do his own stunts well into his career. Thanks to his dance background, he combined grace with explosive power, making his fight scenes even more believable. Cagney's co-stars sometimes learned how tough he was the hard way. During The Public Enemy, actress Mae Clarke wasn't warned that Cagney would really shove a grapefruit into her face, which shocked her and caused a small injury. This wasn't an isolated incident. Cagney was known for occasionally landing punches that weren't entirely fake during performances. One of the clearest signs of James Cagney's real toughness was how he was seen off camera. Even though he built a career playing gangsters, Hollywood insiders knew he was someone you didn't want to mess with. Comedian Bob Hope once joked that if you tried to pull a fast one on Cagney, he'd knock you down but then help you get back up and brush you off afterward. Cagney didn't often talk about his fighting skills, but in a 1973 interview, when asked, he admitted he knew how to hold his own. John Wayne's tough guy image wasn't just Hollywood make-believe, it was backed by real strength, and a rugged upbringing that came before he ever set foot on a movie set. Born Marion Morrison, Wayne grew up in the tough conditions of early 1900s, California and Iowa, where hard physical work was part of everyday life. Towering at 6 feet 4 inches, and strong from a young age, Wayne first made his mark not as an actor, but as a football player, earning a scholarship to USC. His power and athleticism were so impressive that in the early days of Hollywood, he worked as a prop man and stuntman, often handling heavy equipment that normally required several men. Many people don't know that Wayne did a lot of his own stunts well into middle age, taking risks most stars today wouldn't dare. While filming The Alamo, he insisted on doing a dangerous horse fall himself, which cracked some ribs. Instead of resting, he taped up the injury, and kept working both in front of and behind the camera. Director John Ford, who collaborated with Wayne on many classics, once said, "Duke's toughness isn't an act. I've seen him pull 14-hour days in desert heat that knocked half the crew out with heat exhaustion, and then get up the next day ready to go." Wayne's physical endurance showed again during the making of The Conqueror in 1956. The film was shot near nuclear test sites in Utah, exposing the cast and crew to radioactive fallout. Out of the 220 people involved, 91 developed cancer later on, including Wayne himself, who died of stomach cancer in 1979. Despite the health challenges likely caused by this exposure, Wayne kept performing tough roles for many years. His strength was matched by an impressive pain tolerance. For instance, during The Greatest Story Ever Told in 1965, he tore his shoulder ligaments during a stunt, but refused to stop filming. His co-star Max von Sydow later recalled how Wayne pushed through the injury without complaint. Perhaps the most powerful example of Wayne's grit was his fight against cancer. After having a lung and several ribs removed in 1964, he was back performing his own stunts in The Sons of Katie Elder just months later, surprising doctors and fellow actors alike. Director Henry Hathaway said Wayne was a man who wouldn't let anything stand in his way. Though Wayne's political views sparked controversy over the years, even those who disagreed with him respected his toughness and stamina.
Kirk Douglas, who acted alongside Wayne despite their differences, once noted that Wayne carried the natural confidence of someone who had survived real hardship, violence, and even time in prison before becoming a Hollywood legend. Unlike many actors, who only pretended to be tough, Robert Mitchum lived a life that made his on-screen tough guy roles seem mild by comparison. Robert Mitchum's tough image wasn't just something he played on screen, it came straight from his real-life struggles. Orphaned at a young age, he spent his youth as a hobo during the Great Depression, hopping freight trains and taking any job he could find. From digging ditches to mining coal, and even stepping into the ring as a professional boxer, Mitchum built the strong physique and world-weary attitude that would later define his rugged screen roles. His boxing stint, though short, was very real. Fighting under the name Jimmy Mitchum, he competed in local bouts as a teenager, sharpening genuine fighting skills and earning the broken nose that became part of his tough guy look. Unlike others who only claimed to box, Mitchum really traded punches in the ring. What shaped Mitchum's authentic grit even more was his time on a Georgia chain gang, after being arrested for vagrancy as a teen. This brutal experience gave him a first-hand understanding of a harshness most actors only pretended to know. What made Mitchum stand out from other tough guys was his complete lack of showmanship. Director Edward Dmytryk, who worked with him on Crossfire, once noted this quiet strength. On the set of The Night of the Hunter, director Charles Lawton was amazed at Mitchum's raw power when he carried actress Shelley Winters effortlessly through demanding scenes, take after take, without showing any fatigue. Off-screen, his toughness showed too. When arrested for marijuana possession in 1948, a scandal back then, Mitchum served 60 days in prison, with the same cool calm he brought to his roles. Instead of harming his career, the episode actually boosted his reputation as someone who could face trouble head-on. Mitchum was famously blunt about acting, once saying he didn't believe in acting as much as just faking it, revealing a practical no-nonsense attitude. Director Joseph von Sternberg, known for his perfectionism, praised Mitchum's effortless toughness. When asked about his natural way of playing tough guys, Mitchum said his gritty, smart demeanor wasn't created for the camera, it came from real-life experiences long before Hollywood. Anthony Quinn's commanding presence wasn't something crafted in acting school, it was born from a childhood marked by poverty and hard work. Growing up in Chihuahua, Mexico during the Revolution, Quinn's earliest memories included chaos, gunfire, and fleeing violence with his family. After moving to the U.S., his family settled in one of Los Angeles's poorest areas, and by the time he was 10, Quinn was already working. Instead of building muscles in a gym, he grew his powerful frame through years of tough jobs, working as a butcher's helper, boxer and construction laborer, before ever stepping onto a film set. His boxing career, though brief, was serious business. Fighting professionally as a teen to support his family, Quinn gained real fighting skills and a broken nose that became part of his rugged image. This wasn't a Hollywood gimmick, but a necessity for survival. On movie sets, Quinn's strength was legendary. During the filming of Zorba the Greek, he carried logs for a famous beach scene, logs so heavy they usually required 2 men, without any camera tricks or stunt doubles. Even local Greek laborers working as extras were impressed. Director Elia Kazan, who worked with Quinn on Viva Zapata, noted his remarkable toughness. Quinn's dedication to doing his own stunts continued well into his 50s and 60s, sometimes worrying directors and insurance companies. At 46, while shooting the guns of Navarone, he tackled a dangerous cliff climb that stunt coordinators wanted done by a double. Unlike many stars, who carefully crafted macho images, Quinn was comfortable showing vulnerability on screen, confident enough to cry without fear of seeming weak. Sophia Loren, his co-star, once said he was one of the few men truly secure in his masculinity. In his autobiography, Quinn reflected on this openness and strength. Charlton Heston built his tough reputation through real-life military service and a fearless approach to performing his own stunts. Before becoming famous, Heston served as an aerial gunner in the Army Air Forces during World War II, a fact he mentioned modestly, but acknowledged was dangerous. On the set of the Ten Commandments, he endured harsh conditions filming in the Sinai Desert, where many crew members struggled with the heat. Heston's commitment to physical demands became legendary in Hollywood. For Ben-Hur, he spent months mastering chariot driving, suffering many injuries during rehearsals. Rather than rely on doubles for the iconic chariot race, Heston did most of the stunts himself, even nearly being thrown from the chariot during a jump. Director William Wyler, known for being tough to impress, called Heston's dedication quite remarkable, noting most stars would have refused such risks. Heston's dedication to authenticity showed again in The Agony and The Ecstasy, where he portrayed Michelangelo painting the Sistine Chapel ceiling. To capture the physical strain, Heston spent hours holding his arms up, leading to painful muscle spasms and inflammation that needed medical attention. When offered padding or easier positions, he declined, believing real discomfort would add to his performance's truth. Co-stars often praised his endurance and resolve. Sophia Loren, who acted with him in El Cid, admired his toughness, both on and off camera. Beyond physical strength, Heston was known for standing firmly behind his beliefs, regardless of the consequences. Whether marching with Martin Luther King Jr. in the 1960s, or later advocating for gun rights, he showed a fearless willingness to face criticism head-on. Director Franklin J. Schaffner, who worked with Heston on Planet of the Apes, recognized this unwavering courage as part of his legacy. That wraps up our look at Hollywood's toughest actors, men whose real-life experiences gave them an edge that today's stars can only try to imitate. If you enjoyed this journey into the stories behind these legendary icons, be sure to like and subscribe for more dives into the golden age of cinema. I'm really interested to hear which of these tough guys impressed you the most. Your thoughts add so much to the conversation about these unforgettable legends. Thanks for joining us as we explored the extraordinary lives behind some of cinema's most iconic tough guy roles.